Hello there and welcome to Blue Sky Media. Of course, this is the channel that ensures that clarity is made to be bare. My name is Musa Dlodlo Umpangazita, and of course in this program, you know that we always want the people, the newsmakers to come and join us and tell us things as they are. It's in 2023, and of course, if you talk to any Zimbabwean, 2023 is a big year because it's an election year. That being the case, the political discussions will start to heat up, and we're already getting to that mood. And today we have a special guest from the political realm. I will allow my special guest to introduce himself to the viewers so that we can get to appreciate this special man who's joining us today.
Thank you very much, Mpangazita, for this wonderful opportunity for us to discuss this very important matter about our country. My name is Mhambi Hove, and I'm the founder and leader of the Nationalists Alliance Party, also known as the African Renaissance Party.
Nationalist Alliance Party presidential candidate is the man that's going to represent the party. And maybe to get us started, for us to have an appreciation of who NAP is, let's start there. Who's the Nationalist Alliance Party?
Well, I need you to take note of the plural there. It's nationalists, not nationalist. So it's, as the name says, we are a collection of nationalists, the people that want to advocate for the national interests of the country. We were formerly known as the Nationalist Alliance of Patriotic and Democratic Republicans back in 2018, NAPDR in short, but we've since revised that name to the NAP, Nationalist Alliance Party. So we are a political formation. We started off in 2017. I was presidential candidate then for the 2018 elections, and we are that formation that has journeyed all this long up to the formation of the Nationalist Alliance Party. So it's still the same formation, just a difference of name, a little bit of change of ideology, political beliefs, which have led us to change the name of the party to the NAP.
And maybe take us just briefly through these ideological changes that resulted in the name change. What transformation has taken place in the party?
I think the key element was to do with the term democracy. As we are maturing as a political party and as we are growing stronger in our ideology, we now have some issues or ideological change point in terms of the concept of democracy vis-a-vis African states, vis-a-vis colonization, and many other things. So we are now a bit reluctant to associate ourselves with the general use of the word democracy, because of certain ideological beliefs that have now veered us in this direction that we've taken.
You mentioned that you were part of the 2018 presidential elections. You participated.
Yes,
yes,
correct.
What's been the journey like? Would you count yourself to have been successful in 2018, or what necessitated you to want to stand again in 2023, considering the results of 2018?
I think I must be quick to highlight that in the 2018 elections, I am the only presidential candidate that officially announced that I was pulling out of that election. It has not been a very easy journey. You know, politics is politics in Africa and in Zimbabwe, but it has also given us the opportunity as a party to then join the formation of POLAD, which has been very important in our political life and the political life of the party itself. We've had the opportunity to interact with government officials at the very highest level to discuss matters with the president and be part of the national dialogue, as it were. So that opportunity to be part of POLAD and to be taking an active role in the politics of the country has taken us to better levels where we think in 2023, we have a better understanding of the political landscape. We have a better vision of the politics in the country. And that dialogue space has given us that much needed political mileage.
We will be coming to POLAD, but I want to zero in on your pulling out of the 2018 elections. What was the reason behind it?
It's important that point must be explained very well. If you recall, there was a dispute in the previous election where there was a claim about they call it chromatography, something like that, where the X was said to be migrating from one part of the ballot paper to the other. So in trying to come up with ideas as to how we can have a more peaceful elections through the multi-party liaison committee, which is chaired by ZEC, we came up with a lot of proposals as opposition parties in the country, which we felt were going to make our elections more transparent, more credible in many ways. So we came up with many proposals. I remember the NAPDR at that time, which is now the NAP, came up with a proposal of how to handle the probability of that migration of the X, as it were. But a few weeks or a few days just before the elections, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission made indications that they were not going to take any of the considerations that the political parties had come up with. And it became clear that the election was going to be disputed. So we found it unreasonable to take part in an election where we could see that already a dispute was on the horizon.
So are you therefore saying that the 2018 election, the disputes around it are very genuine?
It's not just a matter of them being genuine, but it's about consensus between the political players. And I think in 2018, there was not much consensus in what needs to be done for us to have a more credible elections. I think political parties were pulling in several directions. There was not an attempt to have a more general position for us to have faith in the elections, as it were. So that by itself meant that we were going into some kind of a sham election, because whatever the outcome that was going to come out, some political party or some political parties were never going to feel satisfied that the elections were free and fair.
Do you reckon that this time around the elections will be free and fair? Already we are hearing other political establishments are crying foul. They are indicating that the ZEC is not playing fair. You are participating. Last time you didn't participate because you felt the system was not properly ironed out, so to say. Now that you're participating, are you therefore endorsing that you are happy with the arrangements that are there going into this election? And what's your take on other political establishments that are saying that the ground is not level?
I think the important thing there is that with political maturity, you then realize that there are certain things that you are not going to be able to change overnight, but you cannot solve that by pulling out of elections or boycotting elections, as it were. What you need rather is to sharpen your political skills, your penetration methods, and your vote protection methods, as it were. And in such a case, as much as we are not very satisfied with the efforts that have been done to make sure the elections are free and fair, I think maybe we'll talk about it later. As POLAD, we came up with several reform proposals that we submitted to government, and which we thought that they were going to be effected in the new electoral law, but none of that seems to be happening. So it's an unfortunate position that we find ourselves in, but again, the essence of politics is going back to the drawing board, find a strategic way of penetrating to the market, which is the electorate, and then how to protect the vote and to find as many mechanisms as possible to secure your win if you get it, to secure your victory if you have it, and under the circumstances, try to prevail.
So there are those that are saying that POLAD was just a waste of taxpayers' money. You guys went into it, and the feeling is people benefited. They got vehicles and other perks. You are indicating that you had some proposals that you brought which were not taken. Some will then say, truly this is evidence enough that POLAD was just but to keep some people quiet, those who are in the opposition fraternity, keep them quiet, give them something to be having in their mouths, and with no benefit for the men on the ground or the citizenry. What's your take on that?
Well, it's understandable in a direction because I think the people of Zimbabwe have got very great expectations out of the politics of this country, given the economic turmoil that we've had. So to that extent, it's very reasonable because depending on which length you are using, you may not feel the expected outcomes of POLAD. But for a more precise analysis, POLAD was, in our view, a very useful process. It's unfortunate some of the political members, political formations decided not to be a part of POLAD, which is a discount on its own. I believe it could have been much, much better had many players come on board. But it's also unfortunate that a lot of publicity is not given to some of the works that POLAD has been doing, which in my view have contributed significantly to some of the, even the stability that we have, the economic stability as it were, you know, the exchange rates and the inflation. Some of these things are ideas that POLADians came up with. And it's unfortunate that, you know, probably politicians in Zimbabwe are used to this grandstanding thing that when something happens, they have to have all the credit and all the talks and noise made about it. As POLAD, we have been having very decent, mature meetings with government and submitting as much ideas as is possible. But of course, one must always indicate that at the end of the day, POLAD had no political power, as it were, to implement policies that it proposes. It remains the duty and the prerogative of the cabinet, of the parliament, and other constitutionally provided for bodies to then implement those policies. So at the end of the day, it was really up to government to take up our policies or ignore them or set them aside or think or ponder or consider them. And there was nothing much that POLAD could have done. But I wouldn't discredit POLAD. I wouldn't say that it was a waste of taxpayers' money, because like I said, some of the peace that we enjoy today is as a result of that dialogue process. You remember in August, you remember the violent events that took place soon after the fuel price increases. That was not a very good sign. Dialogue had to be done. And if you recall, the Atlantic Commission did recommend that dialogue must be done. So it's unfortunate that some circles of politicians will discredit POLAD just because they decided not to be a part of it. But in its own essence,
the feeling among those that are discrediting it is that members of POLAD, with the perks that you guys have been getting, you have not said out or spoken out against government, and ZANU-PF in particular, while you are in POLAD, because you are getting benefits from it. You have been more praise singers than people who say that's the feeling on the ground.
That's a very unfortunate position, like I said. And it's said that even some of the journalists have not taken time to be part of the POLAD meetings. You know, in POLAD, we have the opportunity to speak very candidly about ideas that are brought up. We've got very candid agendas, and some of the discussions that we have had in POLAD are discussions that you would not expect to be raised to the head of state, to the government, some of those very difficult issues. But like I said, it's unfortunate that perhaps the public has gotten so used to this idea that when you want to have a point heard, you have to make as much noise as is possible, be seen, be heard, to be shouting, to be very at the top of your voice. And then they say you are talking sense or you are being strong against the government. But when you sit down at the table and you raise a point in a decent manner, in a conversation, it's still the same point and it's heard. And as I said, at the end of the day, then it's up to government to decide what to do. And when they do not do some of the recommendations that we have, we raise concerns. This is what thought should have been done, and we're not understanding why it's not being done. And that environment in itself for us was a plus for POLAD. And the issue about PECs, it's really, most of it is just people's ideas, people's thoughts that POLAD people are getting a lot of PECs. Some of them are just unfounded allegations, really.
Right, maybe let's shift focus now and go to the 2023 elections. In terms of your preparations as NAP, where are you? Where are you in terms of your preparations? And what's your take about the coming elections? Do you reckon that with what's prevailing on the ground, they'll be free and fair? What's your take as well as your preparations?
Well, we are making steady preparations towards the elections. And it's really unfortunate that at the back of it is us sitting on a set of reforms that we proposed as POLAD, which have not been put into use. It's very difficult to then anticipate that elections are going to be as free, because we already have this feeling that a lot of people may ride on that. We are very prepared for the elections. We are making steady progress as we approach the elections. We are reaching out to the electorate in the various channels and methods that we have, given the limited amount of resources that we have. I must also state that we are very concerned as a party about the monies that have been gazetted by ZEC as to how much it will cost to run for these elections. So these are some of the dimensions that we're considering in terms of how to engage ZEC, or any necessary steps that we must take to ensure that our ability to participate in those elections is not limited by especially financial resources. We continue to engage again with government through POLAD to ensure that we speak about the freeness and fairness of elections. I can tell you that we have had a very high level meeting with government where we spoke with a very key interest about the freeness and fairness of elections. So again, you can never be 100% certain as to what will happen. There are so many forces at play, but we can only hope and pray that the elections are going to be free and fair.
And maybe this is the opportunity to attend to the notion that's always said pertaining to political establishments when they come up. You were there in 2018. Even during that time, it was indicated that a lot of the political establishments, maybe especially those that mushroomed during that towards the election period, and some which we are seeing coming up now, that there are those that believe that these are just there to split the opposition vote. And where do you stand, and what's your take on that notion, where others are feeling that these are not these people are not their own people?
I do not understand that, especially coming from people that know how the constitution system works, and the people that I suppose have read the constitution, who can feel, breathe, talk the constitution, because the constitution is clear about multi-party democracy, and the view of the people is expressed through their vote. You do not, it is fraudulent, it is a fraud, a serious fraud, to buckle or bundle voters in one basket with the intention of manipulating that vote so that it has a certain outcome. I'll give you a mathematical example. If you have got 10 people who were going to vote for 3 parties, and the outcome would have been 5, 3, and 2 democratically, and then you say, because we want to influence the vote, we are saying no other player should come into the politics, so that we have got 2. And then you have got a 5 and 5, meaning the other 5 and 2 have joined their votes. They have not voluntarily joined their votes. They have just joined their votes because that's the option that you have given them. But in their democratic will, they would have voted for another party. So if you enter an election and people don't vote for you, there is no other justification that you can hate or dislike those people for, because they didn't vote for you. That's not democracy, as it were. That's not what the Constitution says. If the people were going to vote for you, there is nothing that can stop them from voting for you just because another political party has come on play. So it is political fraud to say, let's have fewer parties, so that we manipulate the vote. That is manipulation. It is illegal, and anyone who speaks that language should be condemned as much as is possible. Give people the opportunity to be contested for, and if your message is good, if your manifesto is good, people will naturally just vote for you. Why do you want to influence the vote by saying, let us eliminate certain political parties? Remember, this country has moved away from a one-party state. But the proponents of who want to who dislike the one-party state seem to advocate for a two-party state. So you cannot say you don't want a one-party state, you want multi-party democracy. And then when multi-party democracy mushrooms, you now say, no, we want two-party state. That is very hypocritical. It's wrong, and it should be condemned.
And maybe the feeling comes from the fact that a lot of these political parties, you see a lot of them jostling for the presidential election, but you will not see them in parliamentary, you won't see them in local government elections. They are just there for the presidential. And that leaves a lot of questions around such political establishments. How do you explain that some of them are sitting in POLAD and they don't have any representation down there, but they are up there? It seems like an easy route to get close to the seats of power. Just stand in the presidential election, and even if you don't have anyone behind you, it's just a briefcase organization. You get to POLAD and you will get a vehicle.
There's a very big political problem that we have in our country, and it's unfortunate that we are magnifying it with shame and with lack of dignity, but it's a problem that we're sitting in, and it is the issue to do with the funding and finance of politics in our country. I will explain something quickly to you. The political players who are able generally to participate at national council and parliamentary level are generally those political parties that are funded directly or indirectly by the state itself. You will see that recently and in the past years, the big parties have been getting funding, serious funding from the state coffers through the Political Parties Finance Act. And we've got information, we know that some of these political parties are funded even externally without having to name names and state that. This is something that is known. And then we have got this desire to have a democratic process of multi-partyism. But we know that these political parties, the so-called briefcase political parties, do not get any funding at all. So the best route that they can take is to say, what is it that we want to achieve? We want a platform, and we want a space where we can effectively be heard and put a voice to the politics of the country. You cannot do that by fielding in council or in parliament or things like that, as it were, in terms of the platform. So because of the limited resources that these politicians have, they end up resorting to the presidential level because, one, that's the most influential level that you can be heard, that your policies can be spoke about. And number two, this is where the resources permit you to do your politics in. The unfortunate thing is we are allowing our politics to go on and on being politics of the big monies and big finances, and we seem to be happy with it. We are not giving ourselves alternative mechanisms to say all these people that are coming on board are real politicians who want to have their political life grow, but are limited by resources. Instead, we are enticed by politicians who are able to field 240 MPs, 1,900 councillors, which is a huge political bill. I always tell people, and I say, the politicians and the political formations before independence, people do not want to sit down and think how they were flying to UK, to Tanzania, to Zambia, Mozambique. It was resources. They were coming from somewhere. If you see these political parties with flyers, with T-shirts, hundreds and thousands of, it's money somewhere. And unfortunately, all these other small players do not have access to those resources. So it's really unfortunate when people feel that these people are just briefcase political parties. And we are not sitting down as a nation to have a conversation to say, how can we enhance the political space in our country, which now demands that we have a multi-party political system? How can we ensure that people that really want to participate in politics are not shut out because of the finances? It's very expensive to be in politics. And the best routes that they take is according to the budgets that they have.
Maybe the feeling is should such political establishments then win the presidential elections, how do you govern when you have the entire parliament not on your side? Should it happen that the ideas that you are selling up there are brilliant ideas and the masses really buy those ideas? One goes into office of the president of the land, but the parliament in the parliament chambers, one doesn't have the numbers there. It's other political establishments. Won't governing be very difficult for a president who doesn't have the backing of the parliament?
What you are accepting, Pangazita, and what you are saying in other terms is to say that the politics that we are preferring in this country is a politics of bundlement, is a politics of siding for something, irregardless of whether it's of a national interest or it's a good idea or it's a progressive idea. It seems our nation has become comfortable with the thought that you need members of parliament to stand with you, irregardless of what you are saying or what you are preaching. This is why we have politicians in this country, which, when a good bill is proposed into parliament, they will not support it simply because they are not from the same formation. And unfortunately, our nation seems to be comfortable with that idea. If what you are saying was very problematic, there wouldn't be a provision in the constitution for independent candidates, independent presidential candidates. The fact that it's there in the constitution, which means the makers of the constitution had it in their mind that it should be possible to have an independent presidential candidate, one without any structures or MPs at all, and be able to govern the country. If the makers of the law felt that it's absolutely impossible for that to happen, there wouldn't have been that provision. But unfortunately, we are choosing to put the provisions of the law aside and every reasonable thinking aside, because we want to have this toxic politics of taking camps, of taking sides. So my view is the price that we are paying as a nation, the political price that we are paying as a nation, is we are not yet doing progressive politics. We are doing power politics. We are doing camp politics. We are doing group politics, whereby it's not the idea that matters. It's who you belong to that matters. Even if you are speaking a good thing, you are proposing a good law, you are actually accepting that with your good ideas, no one will support you. And unfortunately, this is what has become of our country. And it's regrettable and it's sad. But our continued participating in politics without resources, with limited resources, is an indication that we have come to the understanding of the provisions of the Constitution, and we are trying to transform the thinkings of people to say you should not just be attracted by where you belong to in your political thinking, but the ideas that are being brought to the table. This is why many people have got a problem with POLAD, because for them, it's not about the ideas that are coming into POLAD, it's about the numbers. So if a person in POLAD has got brilliant ideas, they discredit that person simply because of the votes that he did not get or the votes that he did get. But at the end of the day, it is not the votes that make the decisions per se. It is the policies, it is the ideas that are then put into law, that are then put into policy, and then take our nation forward. Actually, the flip side of it is you can have a very popular president or a very popular government led by a certain party, but with not very good ideas, and we still get to the same predicament that we have. So I'm trying to convince our nation that let's desist from this thinking that it is only a president who has got support of parliament who will make it, even if he doesn't have MPs in parliament, simply because they are not of the same formation. We should graduate from that low-level politics.
Right, 2023 is here. What is NAP bringing the people of Zimbabwe?
The Nationalists Alliance Party has taken time to craft a very, in our view, powerful manifesto, which we think, if we make good enough effort to get to the people, is going to make a serious mark in the politics of our country. NAP is coming with an ideological set of political beliefs, which we believe are going to make a big influence in our politics. We are looking at addressing the issues that are facing our country right from a historical point of view, because we believe that the problems that we face in our country have got a lot to do with the history of this country, even moving into independence. If we don't do those fundamental things that must be done, we might find ourselves doomed. I'll give you a couple of examples. We've got to understand how economics work and how economics work at the back of politics. So politics is a careful balance of politics, economics, academics, and many other factors at play. These have got to be balanced fairly and well, understanding the prevailing environment. I'll give you an example of the land reform. That was a political move, but it has got its own economic consequences. There are lessons that can be learned from that. If we want to achieve certain economic outcomes, we have got to balance those political views with the realities on the ground. Another example that I give is that of ESA. It's a good academic theory on paper, but with economic and social consequences that are not desirous. Another example is the indigenization, the attempt to indigenize businesses in our country. Again, a very seemingly progressive political direction, but with its own effects on the economics of our country. So NAP comes on board with this desire to balance the politics, the academics, the economics, and all those fundamentals carefully, because politics shouldn't be, in our view, just doing things radical, just taking a position just because this is the political outcome that we want, without considering the other external and internal forces that are at play.
Right, we are wrapping it up now, and 2023 is around the corner. And whenever we go to elections, it's said that we always have to talk about political violence and mudslinging, name calling, and these are the things that are prevalent going to every election. What's your take on that, and what do you make of 2023 and your desires for the country headed to this very important period?
The very unfortunate thing is that politicians and political formations have focused more on the opponent rather than on the policies that they want to give out. This is why you find a lot of mudslinging. You give anybody a platform to speak their manifesto, they start talking about the other political party instead of speaking their manifesto. As NAP, we are coming in with this changed mindset that all we can ever desire to do is to speak our manifesto, our plans, our policies, what we want to do, should we have the opportunity to govern. That's all that we are going to do. If politicians are going to focus on that reality, then I'm sure the electoral space could and has a chance to be peaceful. We are totally of a new political mindset of understanding that elections are merely a contest of political ideas. In fact, when you enter the political race, you are contesting against everyone who then decides to come on board. But sadly, many people still have this idea that you are challenging someone, that you are condemning someone. Your politics is to say, when I stand up and say, I'm a presidential candidate, somebody says you've challenged the president. And I say, where do you get that from? Our understanding is simple and clear. The political elections are a must, which must be done according to the Constitution. And when the term of the political cycle or electoral cycle comes to an end, literally there is nobody in office. And there is now a need for those offices to be occupied through elections, through a fresh election. It means everybody is contesting for office. But people still have this idea that you are challenging somebody. It's because you are not happy with somebody. It's because you want to have somebody removed from office or you want to take power. Yet the ultimate concept of elections is to say, bring your idea, and when the election time comes, sell your idea to the electorate. If people love it, if they believe it can change their circumstances, they will vote for you. As the NAP, you will see throughout the election cycle, you will hardly hear us speak of another political party. All we are going to be doing is speak our policies, our manifesto, expanding it, explaining it, and explaining why we have put those as policies and proposals in our manifesto. That's all we will do. We are not going to focus on what the other party is doing. We are not going to focus on what the other party has done, because they have done what they think is right according to their formation. So for us to begin to experience peaceful elections, this is the mind that we need to say, let's focus on selling our policies. Let's focus on the electorate. Let's talk to them, selling our ideas, not necessarily condemning the other contestants. And to realize that elections are a contest amongst several political players, not a target against one person or the other, or really splitting the vote as it were. No, it's a race. And the Constitution provides that as many people can come into the race, and the winner will be declared the winner.
Well, it just leaves me to thank you, Mr. Divine Mhambi Hove, the president of the Nationalists Alliance Party, for joining us and telling us a lot about the coming 2023 elections, as well as his thoughts around the political field in Zimbabwe. Mr. Mhambi, thank you so much for joining us, and wish you all the best with your party going to 2023 elections. And I'm sure that we will get time to talk again as the clock will be getting closer and closer. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Mhambi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mpangazita. I do hope that we'll have another time where we will unpack our wonderful manifesto. It's so loaded, and I'm sure if you read through it, it will just change the way you think and look at politics. Thank you to the viewers, Maita Enyumori Zimbabwe, Siyabonga Sapole Zimbabwe, for watching this video.
Thank you so much. So that's it. Remember to click the like button, the subscribe button, so that you can get to see more of such programs. My name is Mhambi Hove. Until next time, when we get another guest in studio, from me to you, it's cheers. Tada.